Okay, now I'm going to share my screen again. Here we go. Okay, so um, so a little bit of history about my accreditation assistant. So when I was at an EPP, like I said, for over 20 years, I went through NCAEP, I went through CAEP, I went through a lot of different types of accreditation, whether it was NCAEP, CAEP, SACS, and I always said that I wish that we had a go-to, something that we could sift through all the CAEP speak, all the SACS speak, and that is what kind of triggered me to develop a program like this. And my purpose for creating this is to provide hope and guidance to your EPP through a concise, relatively easy way to navigate questions, suggestions, evidence through videos, spreadsheets, and lists of questions that I have developed over years of working through this. So what I will show you in the course is I'm going to show you the standards, which are obviously CAEP standards, and the components, which are CAEP components. But when it comes to the questions and the evidence and the Excel sheets and the videos, those all came about as tried and true. I've been there, done this, and I've put it together. So hopefully it will make life a little easier on your EPP. So my vision through this is that I truly believe that this course will set the nuts and bolts for a successful accreditation visit. Can you hire a $30,000 consultant? You can definitely hire a $30,000 consultant. However, the issue is that I'm a consultant. The problem is that what happens with a consultant is that we don't know your students, we don't know your data, we don't know how you collect your data. So no matter what, no one can do the work for the EPP. And that is where I see in my consulting work where EPPs get tangled and they get caught up because they've got all this information and they're trying to figure out what to do with it. And I've come in many times and they'll say, so can you do it for me? And the truth is that I just don't know your data and I don't know your students. So what I'm hoping with this course is that you have a usable way to collect your data, store your data, crunch your data in a one-stop shop. So let me show you what the course looks like. Okay, so if you go to the course itself, I won't play you the video. There is a video at the beginning of each of these sections, and these are what the sections look like. So I start just with an introduction, then I go to navigating the course. By the way, the introduction and the navigating the course, if you go to my website and click on the course, you can see these two for free. And the navigating the course is pretty helpful in helping you decide if you want something like this, because I take you through everything from what's in the Excel worksheets to what's in each of the components. I have suggestions for organization. So it's a little bit of a taste of what's to come. Okay, and then where I always suggest everyone starts is navigating the course. So what happens here is my suggestion right off the bat, once I have EPPs purchase the program, is to start with each of the videos. And you'll see in the navigation bar, you'll see a video under Understanding the Standards. You'll see a video under Standard R1, under Standard R2, and so on and so forth. What I would suggest to the EPP is that you start with getting together in a room, especially new EPPs. I suggest getting together in a room and watching all the videos. So in this one, with navigating, understanding the standards, in this one, what I do is I walk you through the mountain of information that is inherent to CAEP. So what I do is I take you through how to organize all of your standards. And what we do is, my first suggestion is to figure out who your people are. Who are your data collectors? Who are the ones who love to make up the surveys? It's a very strong suggestion that whoever is going to be, and hopefully everybody will be there to see CAEP through, whether it's 6 months from now, 2 years from now, 7 years from now. But my suggestion is that if you know that you're going to be there for the CAEP visit, you should probably be working on standard 1 or 5. Those are, all of the standards are major, but standards 1 and 5, those just have so much information, and it is so hard when someone leaves to transfer that information. Now, this program will make it easier to keep up with the information, but if you have that consistency and you have that fluidity of someone who is actually going to be there the whole time, it's going to be much easier for you. So obviously, standard 1 is all about students and collecting that data. Standard 2 inherently goes to whomever is your clinical chair, whoever runs all of your clinical experiences. That is all about the clinical experiences, training the clinical educators, how you assess students through those clinical experiences, how you support them through clinical experiences, how you support the clinical educators through clinical experiences. Standards 3 and 4 is a lot of survey data. So 3 is all about recruitment. Standard 4 is all about impact. This is where you're using all those surveys, your employer surveys, you're working with recruitment. So it's a lot of collecting information, but it's a lot of creating those surveys also. Standard 5 is that huge one. It's the quality assurance system. It's where everything from standards 1 through 4 falls into. So it is, the quality assurance system is assessing the assessments. Then standards 6 and 7, most of you will not need to do, most EPPs don't need to do this because you are probably housed under the auspices of a regionally accredited university. So Teach for America, teacher residency programs are standalone EPPs, and they're really the only ones who need to worry about standards 6 and 7. But I do have a lot of information for standards 6 and 7 should the EPP need that information. Housing data, huge. My suggestion to any EPP, free advice, is have a way to house all that data. CAEP does not want to know that it's sitting around on a thumb drive somewhere. They want to know that you have it in a system. So should the power go out for 15 miles around your university, you're not going to lose it. My suggestion is always to use the LMS system that your university has, whether it's Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle. Those are great ways to house the information, and your IT people can help you with that setup. So once you've organized everything, and this might take a while for your EPP to organize all the information and figure out who is doing what. One thing I didn't mention is that I always suggest, and CAEP kind of expects this, that once you have your standards chairs, those 5 standards chairs, make sure you have a committee within each of those standards. It should include the chair, it should include another faculty from the department, it should include a faculty from somewhere else in the university who might work closely with teacher education. Maybe that's a math professor, an English professor, or even somebody from the registrar's office. An alum, a current student, and an employer. Those are usually good people to have on committees. CAEP also expects that you involve your stakeholders. So it's all about that collaboration and sharing of information. So I'm going to show you, I'll click on a few things in each of the standards. I won't go through each of them in detail, but you'll get the idea. So standard 1, of course, like I said, each standard starts with a video. And then each standard has a certain number of components, and these are according to CAEP. So standard R1, R meaning revised standards for 2022, has 4 components. So the first one is the learner and learning, and this is how I've divided it up. So standard 1, learner and learning, standard 1, learner and learning evidence, standard 2, content, evidence, instructional practice, evidence, and it goes through all 4 of the components. So here is where I start moving away from what CAEP says to where I have seen questions best fit and best answered within each of the standards. So what I've done is I explain the standard. So learner and learning, I explain that it aligns with those first 3 in-task standards. And then this is where I've given you questions to focus on. CAEP doesn't say focus on this, but I know from experience you need to focus on this to get the job done for each of these components. So, little things like, oh, it's not that little because it's CAEP, so it's not that little. So how does the EPP engage P12 families in the learning process? Sometimes you really have to read between the lines through all that CAEP speak to figure out that they're really asking you about families. They're not just asking you about your candidates, they're asking you about your candidates and who they work with. So things like that, that's what I've pulled out of the components. And then what I've also done, like I said, is I've given you suggestions for evidence to collect within each component. Standard R1-2, content. This is aligning to in-task standards 4 and 5. How does the EPP define diversity, equity, inclusion as it relates to content knowledge? If you look at some of the language in the CAEP handbook, they don't specifically say that, but I know from doing this and evaluating this that they're looking for these type of answers. Then what I've done is, like I said, I can take you through each of these, but what I've done at the end of each one is I've given you an Excel file. So each of the Excel files, and what I'm going to do is it's not going to let me download within the share, so I'm going to bring up what the Excel file looks like, and I'm just going to open one of them up just so you can see what it looks like. And I'm hoping you're seeing this because I just, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to reopen it with the Excel file so that I know that you're seeing it. So here's what the Excel file is. This is the Excel file for R2 for clinical preparation, but I'm showing this to you because what I've done, it's just one I happen to have open. So R1 would obviously say R11, learner and learning. And then each of these questions are the questions that I showed you back within each of those standards. So what I've done was I've taken the questions from the standards and I've put them all into Excel form. And then here's a place to put evidence. My suggestion with each of the Excel files, so there's an Excel file for each of the standards. My suggestion is to use them live and make sure that they're in your LMS somewhere so that your faculty know that they can access them. So that's going to be a part of your organizational management also, is knowing where each of the Excel files are and encouraging your faculty to put information in there. So if your standard 2 chair has, here's the EPP documents for ongoing collaboration, I've just put points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can go all the way to 55. The Excel sheet is for you to use, but this is a way to collect the data through each of the standards. let me go back to, okay, so that's essentially how each of the standards are organized. So there's standard 2, clinical partnerships and practice, standard 3, candidate recruitment, progression and support, standard 4, program impact. I'll just click on standard 4 real quick so you can see it. So here again is the video for standard 4. And then I go into each of the components for standard 4, completer effectiveness, questions that I want you to pay attention to, the evidence, and then again, the Excel files. And like I said, there's an Excel file for each of these. So I always like to say when it comes to CAEP, it is a marathon, it's a sprint, it is something that takes a while and a lot of collaboration. It can't be done in a vacuum. As a matter of fact, if CAEP comes through and finds out that the CAEP coordinator did the entire thing, they're really not going to be happy. They like to know that your faculty is working on it together, that your students are familiar with it, that your alum are familiar with it, that your employers are familiar with it. Another thing about the program, and of course I put the resources in here also. Another thing about this program is for everyone subscribed to the program, I do a live Q&A every week, so you would be getting an email, and that is just a time that I'm on Zoom, and you can just jump on with your faculty and ask me questions, so that is part of the package. I also do live updates. The nice thing about all of this, all of these standards, is that as CAEP changes, I can go in and change it. So I don't know if you remember last year, they decided to completely change around standard 3. And so I would be able to go in and send an email to all of you who are subscribed and say, hey, I changed a couple of things around per CAEP's changes in standard 3, please go back and look at those. So I am able to live update this. So I'm going to stop here, and I would be remiss as a consultant to say that if you need more than this package, of course, I've got a group, we are here, we can, of course, look over your information, we can figure out other packages if you need more than this particular program. But I do feel that this is, like I said, it's the nuts and bolts. It is what could easily, not easily, I hate to say easy because CAEP is not easy. I have to keep reminding myself of that. So, but it gives you the nuts and bolts information that you need to actually start putting that information into CAEP and start collecting it. If you are 6 months away from your CAEP visit, it's going to be hard to get all that information in, but at least you have an outline and a platform. If you're 2, 3, 7 years away, you have lots and lots of time to work on this. So with that, I am going to stop the share, and I'm going to look at, got some questions. So let me get to the chat and look. Okay, we have a centralized platform where all the data is okay. Great. Okay, so let me stop that here. And Ruth, I may, if you want to take your mic off and ask any questions, I am happy for you to do that.
Yeah, thank you. This was very helpful. I'm just processing the information. one thing that was interesting is, again, like I share, most of us are new, and I believe all of us is the first time going through CAPE. And when you mention about adding, including as much stakeholders as possible, so we have, all of our faculty, our chairs are involved, but we don't have students involved in it. Is that something that is definitely a must, or?
It's not a deal breaker. However, when they come out to do your visit, whether they do it virtually or they do it in person,
Mm-hmm.
not sure where we're going to be a couple of years from now,
Yeah.
they will ask for a student panel. So
Okay.
so your students will need to know something about the CAPE process. Usually what they want to know from the students is if they've had any involvement in the CAPE process, and it's going to be things like um, when you do your assessments, it's going to be important to them to know if students were involved in any of those EPP created assessments. And if they were, what kind of involvement did they have? If you have a student exit survey, were students involved in the creation of that survey? As we've found out, probably the best people to help with the creation of an exit survey are our students.
Yes.
So those are the kind of things they're going to want to know from the students, in addition, of course, to the great teaching and the support
Mm,
for clinical experiences. They are very interested to know how your students have been involved in any of the CAPE processes. If you have
okay.
a meeting where you talk about the 8 CAPE reporting measures every year,
Mhm.
do you have students who are invited to the meeting? So they just don't want to hear, they don't want to have students look at them and say, I have no idea what's going on in that department.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, that's very helpful. Okay. Yeah, that's the one that caught my attention because I've I participate in other accreditation for other schools, but and I've never. I mean, I think it's a great idea, but I've never
Right.
heard that. So
Right. It is 100% about collaboration. Like, I mean,
yeah.
the worst thing that anybody can say during CAPE is if you're the standard 2 chair and they ask you about standard 5 and you say, I'm standard 2 chair, I don't know anything about standard 5. They do not want to hear that. So they
Okay.
want to know that everybody had a hand in all of the
Mm,
standards, that everybody has a familiarity, that the standards chairs are the chairs. They're the ones who collect the information, they're the ones who are going after the information, but that there are other people who have been involved also.
okay. Yeah. 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 So yeah, we share all the information with each other.
Yeah.
We have a centralized system, so we all have access and we all maintain each other up to date with what's happening. Um, but we don't, and we have faculty from all the departments within the School of Education, but we don't have students. Not to my knowledge, we haven't had students involved in the creation of
Right.
any of this. But I'll bring this up
Yeah. And
to.
students rotate because they graduate.
Yes, yes.
So they're hard to keep. Faculty and stakeholders, employers are pretty easy to keep on your committees, but students rotate because you've only got. I mean, undergrads. I mean, the EPP I was at, we didn't even really see our undergrads in our courses until their junior year. So, and then graduate students, we would usually only have them maybe for 18 months. So students
Yeah.
rotate, but as
Okay.
long as there is some kind of involvement, it's
Okay.
yeah, it'll be acceptable.
Okay. Do you
Definitely.
have any more specific? I mean, it was very thorough, but do you have any more specific insights or tips for standard 3?
Standard 3, recruitment.
Mm-hmm.
So one something I actually mentioned in the program, it's a good idea to have your milestones mapped out from entry into the program until matriculation through the program. That's going to be real important. Milestone, I mean, whatever you call them. We used to call them milestones. Milestone one was admissions, and we had all of our admissions criteria. We showed how we aligned with with the admissions undergrad and graduate admissions offices. We showed how we aligned with undergrad and grad admissions goals for recruitment, in addition to our own goals for recruitment. A lot of we would partner, of course, with the LEAs and figure out, well, they want to recruit X number of STEM teachers a year, so that would become part of our recruitment goals. Or they needed to recruit X number of male teachers in math, and that would become part of our recruitment goals. So our admissions criteria and our dispositional assessments would come into that first milestone for admissions. And that was in addition to GPA, or if you require test scores. And then milestone two would be that first group of courses that you require everybody, regardless of their desired teaching certification. Everybody goes through these courses for milestone two. And how do you measure those courses, and what course embedded assessments? So you're going through all those milestones. So that is that. So that recruitment through progressions is what what we want to see, and having a good map for that would be always a good idea.
So does that include, because I have this question, because it's my first time doing this. So does that also include, I think it's R3.2, retention as well? Like, what is the plan for retention?
Yes, and retention, and retention takes different forms. You should probably also have not only a plan for retaining your students and how you support your students through the process, but what is the plan after you have supported a student who you know it just needs to be counseled out of a teacher education program. So having that plan also, because they know that not everybody who comes into the teacher prep program is going to be a teacher, and that's because they've changed their mind, or that's because dispositionally they're really not cut out for it. So the retention piece is not only how we support our students through the praxis tests, and I don't know if you're an Ed TPA state. We're an Ed TPA state.
Yeah, we are.
Right, exactly. So how do you support your students through all that? But also, how do you support your students who you know are just not going to matriculate through the program, and what's your process for helping them figure out another major, or maybe doing a program without licensure?
See there. That's good. That's helpful. So we have our program is pretty, rigorous. So we have students out selecting themselves, out self-selecting themselves.
Oh wow.
So do you hear me?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So we are working on we are assessing what are the ways in which we can help them if there are ways that we can help them to stay and remain. Maybe they are not, maybe they get frustrated with the first time that they take the praxis exam. That we're already implementing some more test practices and test practice text practices, but things like that. So that was more. So your answer is helpful. Yeah.
Very much so. Talk about any kind of programs or grants. I know of some schools that they have grants where that each of their students gets a praxis test for free. And so, I mean, there are talk about any kind of program, any kind of support that you have for your students. I remember we got a huge grant for a resource lab, and we bought every piece of praxis material we could find. We bought programs. So anything like that shows that beyond your school, that the university also supports your students.
Yeah, we did have a grant, so we're incorporating it now this year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Every student has to take a practice test.
Excellent.
And then we assess them at the end of the semester to see where they are, and at least once. They get to take it at least once.
Excellent. Also, that just reminded me, also within Standard 3, you're talking about, does your university do any type of, is it full admission only, or do you have some type of delayed admissions for students who are not quite ready to enter the program? And what supports do you offer? I mean, the answer could be no, that you don't, and that's. But yeah, so talk about any recruitment, retention, progression, everything you're doing. And like I said, it's not a bad idea. Standard 3, Standard 5, to have even as part of your evidence files, have a visual of what it all looks like.
Okay. And in your course, the question, how you said that you break every standard through questions. Are these some of the questions that we can find within standard 3.1,
yes,
3.2?
Yes, and like I said, also if there's something that you just thought up and you're like, well, should I throw it in there? Like I said, I'm going to have the once a week live meeting, or you have an email also. So I mean, that can always be answered. Yes.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yes, definitely.
Good. Those were my questions. This is very helpful. Yes.
That is the other thing I should mention before I stop the recording is that on the website is and in the email there is a link to the website. There is a discount code. I'm very upfront with this. The discount code is $1,000. The package is $82.50, so that's $72.50 without the $72.50 with the discount code. It is for a year's subscription. And I'm not one of those people who says, well, contact me and we'll discuss the price, because like I said, a consulting package is twice or 3 times that much. And somebody said to me once, "You putting yourself out of business as a consultant?" I said, well, no, I'm not trying to do that, but like, this has been a vision I've had for so long, that if a one-stop $7,000 package will help you, then so be it. Like I said, you still have to do the work, but we can always add services if needed. But there is an interest form and there is a discount code on the website, and of course, I'm always available for questions through. We could Zoom. I could Zoom with your faculty. I'm happy to do that. If you are not the dean or the department chair or the person who makes the decisions, you can always Zoom with your faculty as well. So thank
you for that. Yeah, I will pass this to the dean.
Awesome. And I'm gonna turn the recording off, and I thank you for your time. And please, get in touch with me, of course, should you have any further questions.
I will.
Okay, let's see.